You say that a wealth tax could raise £24 billion. These are people who can pay for the best accountants, right? They can move their assets around, they can leave the country if they need to. Peter Kyle told me yesterday that he is worried about billionaires leaving the country because of this Labour government's tax proposals as it is. Wealth tax sounds great in theory, but is it realistic that there's always going to be, these kind of helpful other people who are going to be able to pay for the things that you want to spend money on?
Well, first of all, I'd hope Peter Kyle is more worried about the homeless people on our streets, or the people using food banks, rather than worrying about the multimillionaires and billionaires. But
I
actually,
think the reason that he's worried about it is because they will stop paying tax in the UK, which is what you would end up. That goes to fund things like homelessness, though, right?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, let's make sure that we're investing in HMRC so people aren't able to escape paying tax. That's ultimately about fairness. Everyone, particularly the poorest people, are made to pay their tax and they're not going to get away with it, so why should the super rich get away with it? But also, we're talking about assets here, and most of the time you can't just pick up an asset and move. The Duke of Westminster owns half of Mayfair. You can't just pick that up and move away with it. So ultimately it's about making sure that we're targeting the assets. I also think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of wealth. Look, if you're poor, you need to make decisions based on your lack of money, and that factors into every decision. If you're very wealthy and you're being asked to pay 1% or 2% on your wealth, the idea you're just going to get up and leave the country because you don't want to pay what is a relatively small proportion of your wealth just seems a little bit absurd. And I think what it speaks to is far too often this Labour government, who have taken donations from multimillionaires and billionaires, are far more concerned about serving their vested interests rather than the communities who actually elected them to represent them.